Your gloves are the only thing between you and a wage 3 times a baker's. Thick goat leather, soaked in beeswax, replaced every 14 days at the guild's expense. You are 24 years old. The last gardener was 26 when they carried him out, and the one before him made it to 28. You know this because the apothecary told you on the day you signed. He told you the wage first, then the survival rate, in that order. It is just past dawn in a walled garden somewhere in Padua or Leiden or off a quiet lane in Paris. The bell of the apothecary's house has rung 5 times. You stand at a locked iron gate set into 10 feet of brick, and the master himself walks down with the only key. There are no windows facing this garden. There is no path from the street. The neighbors believe it grows lavender for fevers. Inside, behind that wall, grows enough refined alkaloid to extinguish a small noble household by Michaelis. You step inside. The beds are laid out by color, and you have memorized them the way a sailor memorizes stars. Red stakes mean aconite, monkshood, wolfsbane. And red means you do not kneel, you do not lean, you do not let a single drop of dew touch your wrist above the glove. Black stakes mean hemlock. White stakes mean henbane. A small bed in the center, fenced off with its own miniature wall, holds belladonna, and the stakes there are painted with a tiny skull no larger than a thumbnail. Mandrake grows in the shadow of the north wall, because the master believes it dislikes sun. Modern audiences picture poison as a dramatic crystal in a velvet pouch. The 17th century reality is duller and more terrifying. It is a hedge. It is a flower bed. It is a perfectly legal municipal asset grown by a licensed guild member with a city seal on his door and tended by a man whose wage is the strongest evidence anyone has of what the harvest is actually for. You pick up your shears. You begin with the monkshood. And you remember, again, the rule is this: you do not touch your face. Not to brush hair from your eyes, not to wipe sweat, not to scratch an itch, not for 10 hours. The apothecary's last gardener, the 26-year-old, broke the rule once on a hot afternoon in July and rubbed his eyelid with the back of a glove that had grazed an aconite leaf an hour earlier. Aconitine passes through skin. It passes through the soft tissue of the eyelid in seconds. By vespers, he was vomiting. By Compline, he could not feel his hands. By matins, his heart had stopped in a pattern the master described with clinical interest as remarkably consistent. You think about him every time the sweat runs down. You think about him when a fly lands on your lip. You think about him as you crouch beside the wolfsbane and clip the purple hood of the flower into a copper basin, careful never to let the cut stem rest against your sleeve. The basin will go to the master's still room at noon. You will not ask what he distills from it. You already know. But at noon, the bell rings twice, and you walk to the gate. The master meets you with a basin of vinegar and a fresh pair of gloves. You scrub to the elbows. He inspects your hands the way a horse master inspects hooves. Then he pays you, not at month's end like an ordinary servant, every single day, in silver coin, pressed into your palm before you eat. A journeyman baker in the same city earns roughly 8 stuvers a day. A mason earns 12. A gardener at the cathedral close, pruning roses for the canons, earns 15. You earn 45. The guild ledgers, and they survive, in Leiden and in London and in Padua, record the line item plainly: hazard premium, venefice. The word is half Latin and means, with grim economy, the work of poison.
The master does not call it that out loud. He calls it your garden wage. He pays in silver because copper tarnishes in the still-room air, and because silver, unlike a ledger entry, cannot be subpoenaed. You take the coin. You bite it from habit. Tomorrow, he tells you quietly,
the carriages come at dusk, and they come to the side gate, the one in the alley, the one the neighbors pretend does not exist. The footmen wear no livery. The drivers are paid not to remember the address. Sometimes a woman steps down, veiled, sometimes a steward. Once, the master told you, a cardinal's secretary came in person and stayed 20 minutes in the still room and left with a small green bottle wrapped in oiled paper. You are not allowed in the still room during these visits. You are sent to weed the hemlock bed. You weed slowly. You listen. You hear coin counted onto a wooden table, far more coin than any tincture for fever should cost. You hear a single phrase repeated across many visits over many months. For the household. You learn quickly that the household is a code. It means an inheritance is being arranged. It means an uncle who will not yield his estate. It means a husband who has been ill for a convenient length of time. You weed faster. You do not look up. You do not, under any circumstance, ask whose carriage it was. The master will tell you only one thing afterward, which bed
What you do not know, kneeling there in the dirt, is that you are one node in a network that stretches across the continent. The Medici in Florence keep a salaried agent whose only job is to identify gardens like yours and arrange discreet preparations. The Bourbon court in Paris does the same. So does the Habsburg court in Vienna. They do not buy from common herbalists. They buy from licensed guild apothecaries, men with city seals, because guild product is reliable, reproducible, and, crucially, deniable. A monkshood tincture from a registered physic garden is materia medica. The same liquid, sold from a back room in the Marais, is murder. The genius of the system is the wall, not the brick wall around your garden, the legal wall around your guild. Everything inside it is medicine. Everything that leaves it through the front door is medicine. Only the side gate, the unmarked carriage, and the silver in your palm tell you the real trade. This is why the courts trusted you. The paperwork was always perfect. In 1676, a Parisian woman named Catherine Monvoisin will be arrested, and the wall will crack.
You will not live to see it, but the master might. Between 1677 and 1682, in Paris, the investigation called the Affair of the Poisons will drag 442 people into interrogation. 36 will be executed. The herbalist Catherine Monvoisin will burn at the stake. And under questioning, under the boot, under the rack, under the slow, methodical horror of the chambre ardente, the suspects will name their suppliers. They will name apothecaries. They will name physic gardens. They will name walled enclosures off quiet lanes with no path from the street where a single gardener works alone. The investigators will trace the supply chain upward. They will find it terminates, by implication, in the bedchamber of Louis XIV's own mistress. The king will read the transcripts and order them sealed. He will lock the original documents in a wooden box and instruct that the box be burned upon his death. It will not. And that is the only reason you, 3 centuries later, can hear this story at all. But in your garden, in 1676, none of this has happened yet. In your garden, the bell is ringing 4. The master is calling for the day's harvest. Henbane is the one you fear most, and the master knows it. Hyoscyamus niger. The flowers are dirty cream, veined with purple, and they smell, faintly, sweetly, of rotting meat.
The smell is the warning. Inhaled long enough, in the closed air of a still room, henbane produces what the guild physicians call the witch's delirium. Racing heart, swollen tongue, hallucinations so vivid the sufferer cannot distinguish them from the room. 3 gardeners in Leiden, the master once told you, walked off a roof in succession, each convinced he was descending a staircase. You cut the flowers into a glazed clay jar with a tight lid. You hold your breath in 8-second intervals. You step back between cuts to let the wind clear your face. The master watches from the still-room door, arms folded, timing you with a pocket watch. He is not cruel. He is protective of his investment. A trained venefice gardener takes 2 years to make. A dead one takes 2 minutes. You finish the jar. You seal it. You hand it to him at the threshold. He weighs it, nods, and tells you tomorrow's order is larger, much larger. A duchess,
The guild keeps a ledger of its dead. You have seen it once, on the day you signed, when the master turned it toward you and tapped a column with one finger. The column was titled, in neat secretary hand, Departures. Beside each name was a cause and a duration of service. Aconite, 3 years. Henbane, 11 months. Hemlock, 2 years and 4 months. Belladonna, 18 months. One man, the master's predecessor, had lasted 6 years, and beside his name the ledger said simply, "Retired to the country, tremors persisting." The master had let you read the column in silence. Then he had closed the book and said, very gently, that the wage was generous for a reason, and that he expected honesty from his gardeners about whether they wished to begin at all. Several, he said, had walked back out the gate that morning. He had paid them a half-day for their trouble. You had stayed. You had signed. You had taken the silver. And tonight, walking home along the canal with 45 stuyvers heavy in your pocket and the smell of henbane still clinging faintly to your collar, you will turn the question over once more. Whether you will wake tomorrow. 300 years later, the walls still stand. You can visit them. The Orto Botanico in Padua, founded 1545, still grows monkshood behind a low fence with a small painted sign. The Chelsea Physic Garden in London, walled in 1673, still cultivates belladonna and henbane in a dedicated poison bed that tourists photograph cheerfully on Sunday afternoons. The labels are in Latin and English. The gates are unlocked. The gardeners wear no gloves. What changed is not the plants. The plants are the same. What changed is the side gate. There are no unmarked carriages anymore. There are no veiled women asking for tinctures for the household. The state stopped buying, or, more honestly, the state built laboratories instead, and the gardens were left to the botanists and the schoolchildren. The wall around the guild dissolved. The wall around the garden became decorative. But for roughly 150 years, between the founding of the great physic gardens and the slow professionalization of pharmacy, the most lethal weapons in Europe were grown on payroll, by men paid hazard wages to die on schedule, behind a wall that everyone agreed not to look over. Your name is not in the ledger of the dead. The column is long, and it was never meant for you to read.